Today, we're diving into the truly unsettling story of a man who more than earned his nickname, the Monster of the Andes. We're going to break down the case of Pedro Lopez, who is, without a doubt, one of the most prolific and, frankly, one of the most terrifyingly elusive serial killers in modern history.
So let's just start with a number, 110. That's how many murders Pedro Lopez confessed to in Ecuador alone. And as you're about to see, that wasn't even the half of it. Not even close.
So how does a person become capable of something like this? I mean, where does that kind of evil come from? To even begin to understand it, we have to go back to the very beginning.
Lopez's early life was just a complete spiral of instability. He ran away from home, grew up on the streets of Bogotá, and ended up joining a gang just to get by. He later claimed that it was during this time that he was sexually assaulted, a trauma that he would later twist into a truly horrific justification for his own crimes.
You know, his first known murders actually happened behind bars. After being assaulted by other inmates, he fought back with absolutely lethal force, killing 3 of them. And here's the crazy part, the prison ruled the killings as self-defense. His sentence wasn't even extended. It was this incredibly violent turning point that somehow went completely unpunished.
So, in 1978, he's released from prison, and his freedom? Well, it marks the start of a monstrous reign of terror that would eventually stretch across an entire continent.
For the next 2 years, Lopez is just wandering through Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia, preying on the most vulnerable people he could find, young girls, many from isolated indigenous communities. He later claimed to have killed over 100 of them in just this period. At one point, he was actually captured by a tribe in Peru and was about to be executed, but an American missionary stepped in and convinced them to hand him over to the police instead. But instead of justice, what happened? He was simply deported, free to just cross the border and start his killing spree all over again in Ecuador.
These numbers can start to feel abstract, but we have to remember, these were real people, with names, with families. Girls like Hortensia Garces Lozada, who was lured away from a market in May of 1979. Or Flor Alba Sanchez, who was murdered in his own hometown that same year. They were just 2 of so many whose disappearances left authorities completely baffled.
His horrific spree was finally brought to a halt, not because of some huge continent-wide police investigation, but because of the incredible courage of ordinary people who saw something wrong and just refused to look away.
Okay, so picture this. It's March 9th, 1980, a bustling market in Ambato, Ecuador. It's broad daylight, there are people everywhere, and Lopez tries to lead away a 12-year-old girl named Melina Roman Poveda. His arrogance had made him completely reckless.
And this is the moment where everything just changed. 2 vendors saw what was happening and they sounded the alarm. Then a market official, a woman named Carolina Roman Poveda, saw Lopez leading the girl away and she didn't hesitate for a second. She started chasing him down, shouting for help. And at first people actually thought she was the one causing a problem. Some even called her crazy, but she kept going. And as Lopez tried to grab 2 other girls, the crowd finally woke up to the danger. They cornered him and they held him until the police arrived.
Once he was in custody, well, the floodgates just opened. Lopez started talking. And as he talked, police started digging. Following his chillingly calm and detailed directions, they began to unearth mass graves, finally connecting all those countless missing persons reports to the man they now had sitting in a jail cell.
So why? What was the motive? When they asked him, Lopez gave this absolutely bone-chilling explanation for what he'd done. He claimed his own victimization as a child was the reason he inflicted that same exact pain on others. It was this twisted, horrifying revenge against the entire world.
And the scale of that revenge is just staggering. It's hard to even wrap your head around it. He confessed to killing 110 victims in Ecuador, another 100 in Colombia, and in Peru he just said many more, with authorities estimating it was over 140. The grand total? Over 350 young lives, just gone. Now, with the confession and physical evidence of over 350 murders, you think justice would be swift, right? Absolute. But what happened next is, well, it's maybe the most shocking part of this entire story. The difference here is just, it's unbelievable. For confessing to the murder of hundreds of children, his punishment was a sentence of just 16 years. Now, he was tried in Ecuador, and believe it or not, that was the maximum penalty allowed by the law in that country at the time, 16 years.
But he didn't even serve that. In 1994, after just 14 years, Pedro Lopez was released 2 years early for, get this, good behavior. He showed zero remorse. He even told a reporter he considered himself the man of the century.
He was then deported and just handed over to the authorities in his home country of Colombia.
This should have been the moment for another country's justice system to finally step up. But instead, it was just the final chapter in a long series of absolutely catastrophic failures. So when Lopez gets to Colombia, the authorities realize they have no active warrants for him there. They send him to a psychiatric hospital where he's somehow assessed as having an unremarkable personality and not mentally ill. So in February 1998, he's declared sane and released on bail of about $70. He paid it, walked out, and just vanished.
Just let that sink in for a moment. The last time anyone officially saw one of the most prolific serial killers in history was over 2 decades ago. He was using another man's ID card to try and renew his own. And that was it.
Now, for a little while, there was an international effort to find him. Interpol issued a warrant in 2002 after a new murder matched his MO. But just 3 years later, in 2005, that warrant was just deactivated. Officially, the trail went cold. He remains a fugitive to this day.
And so we are left with this final, deeply disturbing question. A man who confessed to murdering hundreds of children, was captured, he was sentenced, and then he was simply allowed to walk away? Is he dead? Or is it possible that the monster of the Andes is still out there,